Hello, everyone. Once again, welcome to the Asset Valuations group. This week, we're having Craig Boden from Solomon's Capital. Craig, why capital? Let's jump straight into it.
Why capital? I don't know. I'm 49. I turned 49 last week, and I've been doing it since early 20s. New York, Hong Kong, Brisbane, Sydney, London. It's just something that I always wanted to do. I was an economics major in university and always was attracted to money and helping people and companies. And it's brought me around the world, and it's put me into many different interesting situations, interesting boardrooms, interesting cities. So that's why.
Sounds good. Yeah. Well, how long have you been in Australia for? Considering you've literally been around the whole world, right? So,
well, I mean, I'm not that much of a global traveler, but I have been coming to Australia. Actually, the first time I came to Australia was in 2006. I raised $8.5 million to bring Hooters to Australia.
That was a pretty big deal.
It was interesting. It wasn't the most successful investment, I must admit, but it got me here and got me hooked on the culture and the country. It had been a place that always was top of the list as far as bucket list. Always wanted to go to Australia, and it was so interesting to be here. It was already tomorrow in Australia. So it's quite funny how that works. So I have been coming since 2006. I've been really coming for the past 11 years or so because I'm a proud father of an Australian son named William.
Oh, wow.
And I happen to be consulting, which is technically what I do now. I am a consultant. I was in Sydney the day that Tom Hanks got COVID on the Gold Coast. So I needed to make a very difficult personal choice. Do I stay or do I go? If I leave, they're not going to let me back into the country. If I stay, I'm not going to be able to get back into Hong Kong, but it wasn't much of a decision. Brisbane's a phenomenal place to be. It was one of the best places to be during COVID. It's a phenomenal place to be moving forward, and my son is my son, so it wasn't much of a decision. So, but to answer your question directly, I've been in Australia kind of almost full time for the last 3 years, but have been jumping around. New York, Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Hong Kong. I'm going to be going to Singapore in the next month or two. So definitely jumping around. But Brisbane has been a great place to keep my stuff.
Yeah, that sounds fun. See, I was originally brought up in South Africa. We've been here 20 years.
Yassis, bro.
Yeah, tell me about Yassis, bro.
See you just now.
Yeah, everything's just now. It can be now or it could be in 3 days, right?
Exactly.
You never really know.
It's a big question mark.
Yeah. But look, I guess I like to ask a lot of questions, right? Obviously, funding's very, very interesting. What is the coolest thing you funded? Obviously, Hooters might have been your biggest mistake, right?
I mean, I've funded in my career, I believe it's up to 44 or 45 different companies. And based upon what I do, they don't always work. When they do work, they work big. Very rarely does something work and the return profile is 7 to 10 or 12% a year over a 3 to 5 year period. It's either you lose money or it's a 2x, 3x, 4x, and sometimes even greater.
Yeah.
So what was the question again?
Well, what is the craziest or biggest thing you've ever funded?
Well, probably the craziest thing was probably Hooters. Getting on a plane in New York, my boss came into my office in New York City and said, I need you in Australia yesterday. So I literally went on Qantas.com, got a flight. That was a Friday. I was on a flight on Saturday. And I ended up watching Sunday night baseball on Monday morning here in Australia. It was actually based out of Sydney he wanted me back in 48 hours, but I managed to negotiate 1 day off to kind of see Sydney and just look at the harbor for, as long as I possibly could. I've funded some pretty interesting stuff. One was a fixed-based operator, or what is referred to as an FBO. Mm-hmm. An FBO is effectively a garage and a gas station for private airplanes.
Oh, wow.
So we did a roll-up of a bunch of fixed-based operators, got it listed, and that was fairly successful. I've done pharmaceutical, I've done real estate. I've done a lot of interesting. Now, these things, again, don't always work, and you deal with all kinds of people. You deal with great people, you deal with not so great people, and part of learning throughout my career is to try to differentiate the good between the bad as soon as possible, because we do see a lot of funding opportunities, and you have to say no to a vast majority, 19 out of 20, 29 out of 30, whatever it is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, the funding, Also, when you hear New York, right, is it go, go, go all the time in New York? Were you, because I think I saw on your LinkedIn profile, you worked in, was it downtown Manhattan or was it midtown Manhattan?
I never worked downtown. I always worked in midtown in the 40s and 50s. Think Grand Central Station. That was always kind of my center of influence, which is a beautiful place to kind of walk through twice a day on your way to and your way from work.
Yeah.
So never worked downtown. Downtown's a bit of a pain in the butt to get to. I lived uptown. I lived on 71st and Columbus. I was an Upper West Side guy, and I suppose I always will be. I miss the place hugely.
And this was on Wall Street, or was it somewhere else?
It was not Wall Street per se. Wall Street per se is downtown. I was in Midtown, but it was working on Wall Street. I still consider myself working on Wall Street, quote unquote. Not literally, but figuratively. Oh. New York is very hustle and bustle, very, very go. It is a city unlike any city I've ever been to. At the end of a random day, you'd get home to your apartment. It'd be late. You'd be beat up, and you'd close your door and you'd say, "Gosh, that city got me today. The city won." As it relates to, I lived in Hong Kong for 6 years, and the energy in Hong Kong, I think, is even more condensed and more pressurized. But what I compare the two. I like to say that living in Hong Kong was like living in a snow globe, whereas the energy doesn't escape in Hong Kong, whereas in New York it does. The streets are wider, the sidewalks are wider. You can still see the sky when you're in the buildings, whereas in Hong Kong you don't really see the sky all that much. You are, when you're in the CBD or on Hong Kong Island or TST. You are just go. There's unlike any place in the world. The energy in Hong Kong is remarkable.
Wow. Yeah. I'm like blown away. Like, I love this stuff. Like, hearing where you've done business and how business is done around the world. It's amazing. But look, I guess the main question while we're here, I think I've given you quite a while to think about it. How do you perceive value?
Well, I mean, I knew that's like your thing. It's like Tim Ferriss asking at the end of his podcast, if you had a billboard, what would you put on it? Extremely difficult to actually. I've thought about it. I think I chat GPT'd it. I still don't necessarily have a perfect answer, but when I think of value, I think of time. I think of time value of money. I think of adding value. I think of I don't know. It's basically, what will somebody give you for what you have? What is someone, what is the value ascribed to a certain thing? Yeah. I think a lot of the answer comes down to time, because that's the one thing we don't have enough of. That's the one thing that cannot be replaced. Money can be replaced, assets can be replaced, but family and experiences and time cannot be replaced. So adding value to me is making me be able to do more of that, do more personal, be happier, spend more time with my son, my family, my friends. So how do I extract value from others and companies and goods and services in order to maximize my time away from work, away from travel, and to focus on the things that make me happy and add kind of real value to my life, which I think I used the word value to answer the question, which isn't answering the question.
Was a brilliant answer, by the way. Which also makes me think that's probably why you left New York to come to Australia.
No, not at all. I left New York because of my son. I needed to be closer to my son. Getting to Australia from the east coast of the United States is not easy. It's not easy from a time zone perspective. It's not easy from a cost perspective. It's not easy from a time of flight perspective. I am literally, I'm at the bottom of the earth right now.
Down under, right?
I am very, very, very far away from my spheres of influence, my family, my friends. But yeah, it really, I don't want to paint myself as a martyr, but yeah, I'm here for my son. I had an epiphany when he was born, and I said, listen, I need to make Australia and Asia the sphere, the nucleus of my life. It is no longer New York. I miss New York every day, all day. But it's just what you have to do. So I moved to Hong Kong. I lived there for 6 years. And then COVID had a few things to say to me about my geographical choice. Yeah. And now I'm here in Brisbane. In Brisbane, as much as I love to wax poetic about Hong Kong and New York, Brisbane's a phenomenal place to live. It's a phenomenal place to work. It's getting better every day. It's growing. I counted, I don't know how many cranes from my roof deck over the weekend. So, the crane index is always a good indicator of growth. Yeah. And, Brisbane has been consistent over the last 5, 6, 7 years, and it's only picking up speed.
There's a lot of arguments around, is the Brisbane property market going to crash? I tell everyone no. Everyone's like, 20, 30%. I'm like, yeah, maybe Sydney, maybe Melbourne, but remember, you can buy like a $3, $4, $5 million property in Sydney and Melbourne, and it looks pretty average. You can buy the same property here, and it's like a mansion. Yep. Hence why we're always going to have an influx of guys from Sydney and Melbourne coming here, and it's going to keep the property market steady. Well, that's what I think anyways. But with your busy life and everything, how do you set yourself goals? How do you find time for that?
It's usually in the morning or it's late at night. I had a mentor very early on who said the best things happen before 9 and after 5. So when I'm setting up goals and thinking, someone asked me the other day, did you watch such and such on Netflix? And I do watch TV every now and again, but if I'm by myself in my apartment, I live in South Bank / South Brisbane. Yeah. I'm not sitting there by myself watching TV. I'm just kind of almost pacing back and forth and making lists and thinking about what I have to do. Yeah. I would say a lot of that thinking and a lot of that mental framing happens, during a workout. I usually try to get in the gym around 7 a.m. Yeah. And then it usually happens sometime between 9 and 11 at night. And I'm a big notebook guy. I see a notebook there. I just like to make lists and tick things off. Yeah.
That sounds, goals. Look, I do agree with before 9 and after 5. Like, you can't really set goals during work hours anyways. It's so hectic. And I can imagine in your field of work, it's go, go, go. Deals, not happening. You have to answer to a lot of people. You have to make life-changing decisions for a lot of guys. So that would be pretty hard. Yeah. But yeah. So what's your next big thing?
My next big thing, I want to be based here in Brisbane / Australia for at least the next 7 years. My son will be 18 by then. I'm perfectly happy to be taken out of Brisbane feet first. I mean, this place, I ask myself this question when I see the cityscape and, I see the weather and the people and the lifestyle. Where else would you rather be? Yeah. I mean, honestly, where else would you rather be?
And there's no crime, right? None of that stuff?
Well, I'm sure there is. You try to stay away from that. I mean, I don't think Brisbane's a perfect place, but it is. I don't know of any place that is perfect. And as you just alluded to, I do think you do get, there's that word again, value for money here, and just the lifestyle. So the next big thing for me, I would like to set up a beachhead in Hong Kong as well. We at Solomon's, so I've been consulting now for Solomon's for a little bit over a year, and we don't have a beachhead in Hong Kong and or Singapore. And as you know, we are a relatively Asian firm, a lot of Asian influence with founders out of Macquarie and Ord Minnett, a South Korean and a Hong Kong Chinese individual. So we have a lot of influence, a lot of Asian money behind us. But as of right now, as I'm speaking to you on this podcast, we do not have feet on the street. So my big, hairy, audacious goal would be to convince the powers that be to set up a beachhead in either Singapore or Hong Kong. My gut tells me Hong Kong because it's a little bit contrarian these days. Everybody's going to Singapore.
Yeah.
There's been, I think last year there was 450 billion AUM inflow into Singapore, as I think a lot of money fled from Hong Kong and China. But I think Hong Kong is going to come back fairly strong. I speak to friends that are up there, and they say that it is, as you would say, pumping. Yo, bro.
Yeah, pumping, bro. No. Have you been to South Africa?
I have not. Not. It is up there on the bucket list as well. Yeah. Spain and South Africa are top of the list right now.
Yeah, I've been to Spain. Beautiful. Food's amazing. I was at a young age, so I can't comment on the woman, right? But the food, the scenes. Wow.
Oh, I can imagine.
South Africa, though, beautiful place. I'm from Johannesburg, so very dangerous, hence why I speak about crime and safe and everything. That's what we look for. But, Cape Town's beautiful. Like, when you get there, it's like, wow. But do I recommend going to South Africa? Probably not. It's not very safe. Yeah. You probably would have to have a whole bunch of security guards and everything if you do go. But food, scenery, beaches, beautiful. Yeah. I'd recommend it any day of the week except for the crime part. But well, as we coming towards the end of this podcast, one of the things I like to ask is, would you rather? Right? Sure. So hope you're ready. Would you rather time or money?
Time.
Why?
It's the only thing that we can't get back. It is the most important thing. And why do people make money? Yeah. To enjoy their time. Yeah. So again, money can be replenished. Things can be replenished. Time cannot be replenished. And, as I look in the mirror every day and I'm getting grayer and I am getting fairly wrinkly. I mean, the good thing about the Queensland sun is a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. I mean, it is. I used to have a baby face. Now I'm not so sure. I'll tell you, this sun has beaten me up. But time.
Yeah, once those grey hairs hit, Look, I agree with time as well. And by the way, if you need Botox, go see my wife. She'll hook you up.
Oh, yeah?
She does all that stuff. She's wonderful. I haven't had Botox yet, by the way. So
I'm trying to grow gracefully, but we'll say there might be a day where I succumb.
But look, I guess everyone's time's going to come one day. But Craig, mate, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. And to our subscribers and our fan base, give us a like, a follow, and a comment. And if there's anyone you'd like to see on the podcast, let me know. But for now, goodbye.